Hi, I'm Raj Kumar, President and Editor-in-Chief of DevX, and here with a very special guest, Sir Fazle Hasan Abed, who of course is well known to the development community, one of the pioneers of modern day development, and a forefather of microcredit, and now running one of the largest NGOs, maybe the largest by some metrics, the largest NGO in the world. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us.
Thank you for having me in this interview. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And I understand one of the messages you have while you're here at this week in New York is to talk about the ultra poor. So tell me what you mean by the ultra poor. Why do you think the global community needs to pay more attention?
I think there is now a feeling that by 2015 we are going to halve the number of people in poverty. We are going to achieve that. And now we are also thinking how to eradicate poverty altogether. So by 2030, people are talking about eradicating extreme poverty.
Right.
To me, extreme poverty is not under $2 a day. In many people, really extreme poverty is what we call ultra poverty. Is people who live not below $1.25 a day, but below maybe 50 cents a day. So these are ultra poor, and these are more difficult to get them out of poverty quickly. For example, we have been working on microfinance for last 40 years. Many people have come out of poverty. People who are in the borderline between poverty and out of poverty, I mean, they're easier to get out of poverty. But it's the people who are really at the bottom of the pecking order in the village. They are outside, they don't have kinship relationship which sort of holds them with them. So they are so marginalized that you find that they are, even microfinance organizations don't touch them.
They're not reached by the traditional aid organizations.
Because the village's microfinance clients think that these are the people who won't be able to repay their loans, so therefore why have them in our group?
Okay.
So they will be kept outside.
So in a way we have poverty, but we have poverty with the easiest group maybe. We've picked the low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit is easier to get them out of poverty, but the real extreme poverty, which we call ultra poverty, is difficult to get rid of just by existing processes of people coming out of poverty, like financial services to the poor, so that people can get into various kinds of enterprises. So these are people who needs a little bit more than just financial services to get them out of poverty. So you need some extra help to get them onto a ladder. Then they can take the ladder and out of poverty.
So what kind of things are you doing?
So that extra help is what we do for 2 years, hand-holding with the family. So the family gets what we call an asset transfer of some, instead of giving them a loan to buy cows or 5 goats, we will give them 5 goats or 1 cow, or give them a piece of land which they can then cultivate vegetables. So basically an asset which will give them an income. Okay. So that's one. Secondly, that asset, to make it an income generation project going properly, they will probably need also a stipend, so to get on with life, in other words, feed their children, themselves and so on while they're doing it. So while they're learning to make the asset an income generating enterprise, they need some help also. Then they need help in terms of healthcare. If they're ill, they need to be looked after by somebody. So some kind of healthcare program is available to them. Their children usually are out of school, so we'll send them to school. So while this 2-year kind of hand-holding period, we help them in all the possible ways, and get them also to save some money so that they start getting into enterprise, sort of savings and credit and so on. So that after 2 years, they should be able to earn some income themselves to survive, and then can also graduate out of poverty. We make microfinance available to them at fairly substantial
subsidized rates.
So that they can come out. So basically it takes 2 years for them. And then what we have done this for over 1 million families in Bangladesh.
You've already done this program?
Done this program for 1 million families in Bangladesh. It worked very well. We also have tracked, researched as to what happens to these families after 2 years. After 5 years of graduating out of our system, they were still improving themselves. We find the 90% are goes on improving themselves after 5 years of graduating from BRAC program. So then the World Bank looked at it and said, why don't we try out in various other countries the same model? Okay. So we were asked to provide technical assistance to the World Bank project. So they are in 8 other countries, in 12 projects, in Pakistan, India, in Yemen, in Ethiopia, in South Sudan, in Peru. So the 8 countries have got this program, and all of them shows a wonderful improvement for these families, and then also they're getting into the ladder for microfinance to come out of poverty.
It's very interesting to me because it sounds very similar to what Jeff Sachs has been doing with the Millennium Villages program. Right. Of course, he does it on a village level.
And we do it on a family level.
You do it on a family level.
Family level. So selecting the family in the village. So the way it works, we go into a village, let's say the 200 families, and we say that find the poorest 10 families in this house, in this village. So the villagers will sit down and then rank houses according to what they think would be the richest to the poorest. Okay. So, and then there will be lots of debates about, is he the poorest from this family, that family should come here, things like that. So the one whole day of discussion within the village. So we'll come out with the poorest 10 or 20 families. And it's in Bangladesh, it comes out approximately 8 to 10% of the of the population are the very, very, very poor. And then we start working with these poorest families. And then what happens is that in each village, we then have a committee of fairly well-to-do people who can help these poor families who are marginalized. So if we give them a cow, if the cow is stolen, then at least there will be somebody in the village who can look after this.
I see. Family. So it's not just outside money, it's even within the village there's
Within
support.
the village there is some more, and they're also trying to help the same families. So we have a village level poverty alleviation committee which sort of looks after these people's interest. And I find that many of the families don't have a home. So there will be some subscriptions taken in the village to augment what we do with them, and give them a home. Or we buy a cow and they make a shed for the cow. So things like that. So villages also contribute something. So this works quite well. Okay. And in Bangladesh it costs approximately $300 per family, including the cost of stipend and healthcare for the family.
300 total over 2 years?
Over 2 years. That's what it costs in Bangladesh. But it costs, for example, in Haiti about $1,700. Okay. In Afghanistan maybe around $700. Okay. So it varies between country to country, but it works. What we have seen that research has shown that people go on improving it, that they don't fall back on.
Because this has been the big critique. Maybe there have been a couple of critiques of the Jeff Sachs model in Millennium Villages. One, that it costs a huge amount up front to do this for everyone. Right. And the second is, will it be sustainable once the subsidy is run out? Right. You're saying there is no sustainability issue, this really works.
So it works, it becomes sustainable afterwards. So these families are basically, we are trying to help them, we call them as a graduation model, graduation out of extreme poverty into the ladder, and then they can come out themselves. So and what there has been a couple of articles in The Economist said why does it work like that? They said that the woman who has been so poor that they didn't have any hope at all, suddenly a hope emerges out of a project which is trying to help them to come out of poverty. So the hope itself is an added sort of kind of sort of motivation for them to come out of poverty. So they work harder. Normally the poor people work hard, but then when there is a hope,
they see a real opportunity to get on the next rung of the ladder.
So that's what it is happening.
How big of a deal is this? Is this as big of a deal as microcredit and microfinance itself?
It could be bigger. It could be as big a deal, because I think that there are extreme poverty we don't talk about. We talk about poverty as though poverty is homogeneous. It is not. Among poor people, there are people who go hungry all the time, and there are people who can't send their children to school. So all kinds of levels of poverty. And I think if we can deal with extreme poverty, then we can deal with anything.
So I guess the argument is a relatively small investment can pull these people out of poverty.
Yes, and it will show others that if these people can come out of poverty, we can do too. So we can work harder too.
So it creates a virtuous cycle.
Virtuous cycle, yeah. So we are hoping that there will be political sort of energy towards getting at least the ultra poor out of poverty. If we can do that, then of course we can, what we call it extreme poverty, under $1.25 a day, will be, of course, we can win.
Now let me ask you a related question, which is about your organization, BRAC, which is of course one of the largest in Bangladesh, but you are now operating in, I think, about a dozen countries around the world.
Yes,
why did you make that move? Why you're one of the first major southern NGOs from the South that is also working in other countries in the South. Why?
You know, Lorraine Jobs asked me a question. She said, why did it take you 30 years to come out of Bangladesh? So you're asking...
I'm asking the opposite. I know Lorraine, and I'm not surprised. She's got
she said,
very strong ambition and drive. Yeah.
So Lorraine says that, why did it take you 30 years? But, you know, you are quite right. Bangladesh itself is a poor country. So we haven't solved all the problems of Bangladesh yet.
Right.
But I think that what we felt is that we could share some of the lessons of our experience working in Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries. And we have had successes in many different areas of development in Bangladesh, in terms of reducing or cutting down maternal mortality by 80%, infant mortality by 75%. So all kinds of things have been done in Bangladesh, which has succeeded. And I think some of these lessons could be also applicable.
Are you seeing that they are applicable? Are you seeing success?
I think poor people's lives almost everywhere is the same.
Yeah.
Deprivation and the hopes and dreams of poor people are the same everywhere. So I find that when we first went to Afghanistan and found that many of the things that we do in Bangladesh is just as applicable in Afghanistan, and people are liking what we are doing in terms of microfinance, healthcare, and so on. We said that if Afghanistan is taking our program so easily as though these are something that they're looking forward to, why not go to Africa and try and help them? And then we also came to Haiti after the cyclone, after the earthquake. So basically, I think we are committed to the poor people and their lives, committed to help them to come out of poverty, and we are now thinking of the world's poorest people. Can we do something for them to get them the next 15 years, get them out of extreme poverty, so that we don't have the kind of dehumanized degradation of human beings? We don't want that in the world in the next. We need to eradicate that.
I have one last question for you while we have time. Our audience at DevX is 500,000 aid workers, development professionals, and it's a big industry, development, right? And people are in NGOs and government agencies and grassroots groups. I wonder what your message would be to them as a real legend in the development field. How should they be thinking about the next 15 years, this period to the 2030 agenda? What can we as a development community do or think differently about?
I have a number of different things, agendas I find it very important that we must try and achieve. In my lifetime, if I could see gender equality, for example, it would have been wonderful. I think it's one of the most unfinished agenda of my life's work, that I haven't seen gender equality in many societies. Gender equality is very important to me in the sense that it will not only help families and communities to be empowered, and happy and live a better life. It is also going to be economically much better if both partners equally share both economic and social costs. So the families, we get our girls also educated, so they are also part of the whole society and can contribute just as well as any boy. So that's what it's all about. I think gender equality to me is the most important thing one could do. And gender equality is also getting the poorest people out of poverty also faster than we can do without it.
Well, it's a very important message. It's a real honor to get to meet you and to spend some time with you. Thank you so much for being here.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.